Hey kids, welcome to lesson 2.5, calling methods that return values. What values are we returning? Well, kids, this lesson is all about finding out where our turtle's at. So we want to know, hey, where's your position on the X and Y coordinate system? Hey, maybe what's your height? What's your width? We can also say, hey, turtle, what's your color? So we can do a whole bunch of things. So really what the calling methods that return values talks to is just finding more information out about our turtle. If a method is a void method and has a void as a return type, like most of the methods we have seen so far, that means that it does not return anything. But some methods return a value back that the program can use. Get methods return a value of an instance variable, for example, getWidth and getHeight, to get the height and width of a turtle object. In the previous lesson, we used some set methods and parameters to set the attributes of the turtle to different values. For example, we set our friend Yertle to red and set the width to 50. Programmers create get and set methods for each attribute represented as an instance variable in a class to access and modify the value in that variable. The get method always returns back the value of that instance variable, and the set method modify the value. That's just saying, kids, you can change it. Whatever you change it to, you gotta call that back. When you use a get method, you need to save what it returns in a variable or use the value in some way, for example, by printing it out. Kids, that just means there's not much storage here. So our really two options is print it or store it as a variable. The data type of variable must match the data type of the return value of the method. You can find out the return type of a method in its documentation. It'll be right before the method name. For example, the integer getWidth means getWidth will return an integer number. We have a couple examples down here. As you can see, we created our turtle. We have some variables, width and height. This is for Yertle. Down here, we printed out width and height. And then this is just another one, getting the position or relative on the screen where it's at. A common error is forgetting to do something with the value returned from the method. When you call a method that returns a value, you should do something with that value, like saving it into a variable or printing it out. That means, kids, if we're going to call it, we should use it. We have an exercise over here. Try the code below that changes the turtle's width and height. How big or small can you make Yertle? Taking a look at our code, we have our usual imports, our class, and we have our method here. We have our world or canvas that's set to 300 by 300. We have our friend Yertle here. It's a new turtle in our world. Down here, we're printing out Yertle's width is get Yertle width. And then it looks like we have set width here and set height. And we have a system print out Yertle's width is, and then a get width down here. And then we turn the Yertle, the turtle, just so we can make it appear, and then we're showing everything. I'm going to move the width down here, just so that makes a little more sense. We're going to set our stuff and then print it out. Well, right there is my width, and we want to change it to how big or small we can make it. Let's work with small. 1 pixel, well, kids, that's not really a turtle, is it? That's just a dot. That means really probably 2 pixels is about as small as I can go. Let's see if that's true. There is little Yertle there. It's so hard to see. Let's try 1. I think this is going to be too small because Yertle has parts to it. I really can't see it. I think 2 is the magic number here, kids. I think 2 definitely is the magic number. So I think that's as small as we can get it. Let's talk about how big we can get it. Large is how large can we get it on this canvas. And our canvas is 300 by 300. That means I think really the biggest we can get it, the biggest we can fit on canvas. Let's see if we can get Yertle pumped up here. Yertle's been in the weight room. Boop. Well, that's a big turtle right there. Well, that looks like the biggest we can get on screen. So I'd say 300. If you want to be real particular and say, well, Mr. Rhodes, technically you cannot see his little feet. You're technically correct, kids. Let's try 250, see where we can get at. It's getting closer. We're going to see in the class, kids, we're going to have one of our famous special prizes if you're listening to the video. Who can get the turtle on the screen with the smallest number? I know 200 by 200 is. Well, let's see if you kids can get it. Either way, 200 looks like a pretty good size, and that's just related to over there. So for this problem, we're going to mark it complete. We have fixed the errors in the code below, so it prints out the area of the space that the Yertle occupies by multiplying its width and height. Remember that you have to do something with the values that the get method returns. So we have to do something with it. Let's work through our code. We have our usual imports. We have our public class. We have our method right here. We are creating our canvas. We're creating our turtle. Down here, we're creating our variable. It looks like it's going to be an integer area. And then it has a Yertle get width, and then a multiplication get height. Oh, that's missing some stuff, and a semicolon. Looks like we're printing it out too, and it says system out print Yertle area is, and really nothing else there. Well, I think the first thing we need to do is define our variable, right, kids? So area is going to equal the Yertle get width, and we have a get height, but what height are we getting, kids? Well, we're getting that crazy turtle's height. Don't forget your bucket. Always need our bucket, kids. Well, that's good. I think that's going to get the width and the height. Looks like we're in a good camel case. I think Yertle's spelled right. Who knows though, kids? Now we have to print it out, and we want this printed exactly right, and we're going to do a string, so we're going to do a little plus thing here. What do we want to print out? Well, we just want to print out the area, right? We have our friend the semicolon. Everything looks pretty good. Let's see if I'm right, kids. There you go. Looks like we get both of our calls. Everything looks pretty good. So that's what we changed for that one. Two-string methods. Another common method that returns a value is the two-string method. This method is called automatically to try to convert an object to a string when it is needed. For example, in a print statement. In the turtle class, the two-string method returns a string description of the turtle. We have a little code here, and we have our turtle being created. We have set name to Yertle, and then we are printing out the Yertle toString. Or just saying, hey, you can just print out Yertle directly. So this is two ways to print it out here, our toString or just our Yertle. And it looks like we're going to try this a little down here, kids. So try some of the get methods and the toString method in the program below. Note that you have to print out what the get method return in order to see what they do. We're just going to try some different ones here. Let's get rid of our little comments. Let's try changing our turtle's name, just like above, the set turtle. That means we're going to come over here. We're going to go Yertle.setName. We're going to change that name. Let's call it Rhodes. What a good name that is. And our semicolon. Then we have to print it out. Let's just try printing it out first. So let's just see what system.out.println, and let's print Yertle out and see what happens. If I think I'm right, it should print out Rhodes. If you come down here, you can see we have Rhodes turtle at 150 by 150. Let's go ahead and try our toString method here. So we're just going to do YRTL toString just like that. Let's copy it so we know we're getting it right. Kids, always notice the double parentheses here. Remember, it has its own little bucket and you have to close the larger one. So let's see what happens if we do this. Again, it looks like it prints out the same thing. So we can just do YRTL or the YRTL toString. Looks like we have to call to get height here. How would we do that, kids? It wants width and height. Well, if we remember right up here, we actually did that, getting the width and height. So let's try writing our own here. Let's do, we don't want it, well, let's do area because that's technically all right. So we want to make an int area. What's the next thing we want to do? We want to define that variable. Which one? YRTL. And we want to get the width. Don't forget your camel case, kids. And then we want to multiply. Well, let's just get the width here. So area, let's make another one. Let's just call this width, kids. Let's make this easy on all of us. So we'll do width. And then maybe we can do height. And that's going to equal YRTL get height. Spelled right, hopefully. Who knows? Remember, kids, once you create this, we have to call it. So let's print out a plus here. And we will do width plus height. Now, before we do that, it should print out Rhodes turtle at 150, 150 heading 0, 0. Well, we actually have to create a turtle, kids, don't we? So let's do YRTL.forward like that. Get a heading here. Uh-oh. Looks like we got some errors, kids. What was that? Well, I created a variable and I forgot to change it. I didn't add anything. So we have to create two of them and then we have to call it. So don't forget, kids, you have to create these variables what they are before you do them. Let's try that again. Now our friend YRTL goes forward. We have a call to get the width and the height, and I printed it off. And if you can see, oh, that's that little part right there. Maybe let's do something a little different then. Let's do another system printout. And let's do our width plus our height. And let's see what prints out now. Well, we got our height to print off on a different line because we are using our system.print.ln. So that worked out pretty good. So those right there, just some helpful little hints, the toString shortcut, and we changed some get methods. Methods with arguments and return values. Methods that take arguments and return values are like mathematical functions. Given some input, they return a value. For example, a square x method would take the argument x and return its square by multiplying it by itself. That's pretty interesting. We have a little thing here, and we have two arguments coming in, the function and returning one value. You will not write your own methods until Unit 5, but you should be able to trace through method calls like below. Notice that the return statement of method returns the value that is indicated in the return type back to the calling method. The calling method must save or use or print that value. So let's understand a little code here. What is the following going to print out? Well, we have our first little integer, which is square, which is the integer x. It's going to return x times x. Then we have divide, and we have integer x and y, returns an x divided by y. We have another method here, and this is going to print out square, which is using 2, and 6 and 2 over here. Well, 2 times 2 is 4. That's going to be my first part. And then we have 6 divided by 2, which is 3. 4 plus 3 is 7. So I think we're going to get a return value of 7. Programming challenge, turtle distance. The turtle class has a method called getDistance. And that's the x and y coordinates, which will return the turtle's distance from a point x and y. Can you find your turtle's distance from the point 0, 0? Then we have another one. Add another turtle and make both turtles move. Then find the distance between them. You must use the get x position and get y position methods, as well as the get distance method above. Well, that sounds pretty fun, kids. Let's go ahead and take care of this first one and see what the distance is from 0, 0. And we're going to make up our point. We're pretty much just going to go forward here, kids. So the first thing I'm going to do is create my own turtle here. I'm going to go under here for this. My turtle is going to be roads 1, and that's going to be a new turtle in the world we created above. I can get rid of this. We don't need this turtle. We have our own, kids. Let's see how this get distance works first here. I'm going to go ahead and move forward 200 here. So I'm going to go roads 1 forward. Let's go 100. Well, let's go 200 since we're not using the default. And let's move our turtle forward. Then let's go ahead and get the distance here. And how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to print it out because we have to print it out. So we're going to go system. Don't forget to make it capital, kids. .out.print ln, and we want it to say now roads 1 is, and this is where we want to get the distance. So we're going to give a space, and then we are going to go plus, and we want to do roads 1 dot get distance. And what distance do we want to get it from? Well, the point 0, 0, right? That means from that point, we should get 200 because that's what we set up. Well, we have to finish the rest of this, and we're going to put roads 1 is this many pixels away from 0, 0. Close this off. Put our semicolon, space this off a little here. Let's go ahead and test this out before we get too crazy here, kids. Uh-oh, we got an error here. Let's take a look at what we're printing out here. We've always got to be careful of this. Towards the end, sometimes we forget to put stuff. Looks like I forgot a quotation mark there. Let's see if that fixes our error. It looks like we are 150 pixels away from 0, 0. 200 would have taken us past that. Let's change our canvas here. Make sure our math works. Now we're the 200 pixels away. So you got to watch. It's only going to read it to the end. since it was 150 by 150, I went up to 100. It went off the canvas, but it stopped and it was giving me a different return. So be careful with that. Let's try some different things here. Let's do maybe a move forward of 50, a roads 1, turn right, and then maybe roads 1 will go forward again, maybe for 12. We'll make it something weird. Let's see where our turtle's at and if we get a different position. Uh-oh. Look at that, kids. Forward. Look at our turtle move. And we got our position. Remember, kids, 0, 0 is over here. So we're calculating away from there. Pretty neat little part there. Well, now we have to find the distance between two turtles here. I'm going to have roads 1 go a little more forward. We want some even numbers for this. We're going to have to create a second turtle here now. I'm going to start commenting it out a little different. I'm going to move this comment down here. I'm going to create some new turtles up here. Our another turtle is going to be, you guessed it, kids, roads 2. Where's it going to be created? Well, we're going to create a turtle in the world we just made. That creates our turtle there. That means down here we're going to have to put some sort of code. We're going to do almost the reverse here. We're going to do roads 2. And we're going to go forward. Remember, our turtle always starts at the same spot facing north. Forward 50. This time, roads 2 is not going to turn right. It's going to turn left. And then roads 2 is going to go forward. Spelled correctly, kids. 50 like the other turtle. This is just so we can work it out with nice, neat numbers here. I think we're going to have to do something like this where we have to create our own variable and store it. Because remember, kids, we have to store it or print it out. And I think we're going to have to create something because we're going to have to figure out where roads 1 is before we figure out where roads 2 is, and then do that math. It means we're going to store something. So I think I'm going to have to make some sort of a variable. Let's start working this out here, kids. First thing we need to do, like I said above, we need to create that variable. And if you notice here, we got a whole lot after a decimal. So that means we are not going to be creating an integer. We're going to be creating a double. And our double is just going to be called distance. And what's that distance going to be? What's that variable going to be defined as? Well, it's going to be roads 1, and we are going to get distance. Maybe spell it right. And here's the neat thing we can do with the get distance. We can get roads 2, and we can get our X position. Remember that from our worksheet, kids. And we're going to get that X position, and we're also going to get roads 2 Y position. Don't forget to get an extra parentheses and a semicolon. We don't need a semicolon right there, though. So what this is doing is creating a new variable, a double, which is going to get the distance, which is whatever roads is 2 is X and Y position. And that should get the distance between those two. Now I think all I have to do is print that out. So we're going to go system.out.println, and we're going to say roads1 is, and we're going to do a little quotes, a plus distance, another plus, another quote, and pixels from roads to, another quote, parentheses, a semicolon. We have our world show true there. Just clean this up real quick. And the code looks a little better. Let's see if it's going to work though, kids. Oh, looks pretty good. 100 pixels. The math kind of works out here. Well, let's try some random numbers and see if it actually works. Let's change roads 1 to 12 forward, and then maybe 36. Let's turn this turn into just a regular turn. Let's do random 44. Come down here, we'll change this to maybe 87, and then we'll go forward 12. Let's see if we get a different number here, kids. And there you go. Looks like we're getting our double, just like the variable we created, a position from the 2. So it's a neat way we can check the distance there, kids. To summarize everything, some methods return values. To use a return value when calling a method, it must be stored in a variable or used as part of an expression. The variable data type must match the return type of the method. And as always, kids, we're going to take care of our AP questions on a separate video. Hopefully you found this one helpful. As always, if you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I'll see you on the next video. See you later, kids. Bye, bye, bye.